Good afternoon, Veritas scientists. Today is Tuesday, April 7th, 2020. I hope you guys watched my video yesterday. I was out in the woods and I found a group of igneous rocks, and I talked a little bit about weathering and about the different types of rocks. So we're going to start that conversation, or we're going to continue that conversation today. So please go back and watch that video about igneous rocks and weathering, and that'll help you be able to understand as we move into the next type of rock we're learning about. Okay, so let's finish the questions from yesterday. I wrote my answer to question number 1 here. It says, based on what you learned today about sedimentary rocks, that was based on yesterday's lesson, why are fossils found inside of sedimentary rocks? So the question we're being asked is, why are fossils found inside of sedimentary rocks? And your response must include the following vocabulary: sediment, cementation, weathering, and erosion. So I wrote my response here to this question. Why are fossils found inside of sedimentary rocks? So first, I'll restate the question. Fossils are found inside sedimentary rocks because, and then I'm going to give my answer, of the way they are formed. So my answer is fossils are found inside sedimentary rocks because of the way they're formed. Weathering breaks small pieces of rock off of larger rocks, and those small pieces are called sediment. Then erosion moves the sediment until it eventually lands in a body of water. The sediment settles to the bottom of the water, where cementation happens over thousands of years, hardening the sediment into rock. Then I continued on to the next page. Let's see, which is here. It says, any plants or animals that died and sank to the bottom of the same body of water would be cemented inside of the sedimentary rock as sediment continues to pile on top of it. The fossils would then be cemented inside the sedimentary rock, where they'd stay until they're found. Okay, so I used the word sediment, cementation, weathering, and erosion. I used all of those words, and I answered the questions, why are they found inside of sedimentary rocks? So if we look at this sedimentary rock that I showed you yesterday, sedimentary rocks form in layers, like the little layers that we can see in this rock. Okay, so sediment, these tiny little pieces of weathered rock, make their way into the bottom of a body of water, and they settle there. And over thousands of years, that's going to harden into rock. Then the next sediment that falls on top of there is going to harden into the next layer. Then it's going to harden again into the next layer, and this takes a really long time, but basically that sediment is settling to the bottom of the body of water, where it is hardening. It is cementing into a rock over thousands of years. So if at this point now a bird dies, and it lands in the water, and it floats down to the bottom. Here's my pen, it's a bird. And now it's here. The sediment is going to continue to fall on top of that and harden. And then more sediment is going to fall on top of that and harden. And more is going to fall on top of that. And eventually you're going to end up with this dead bird's bones are going to be stuck inside of this sedimentary rock. Okay, so because of the way that sedimentary rocks are formed, when that animal dies, it is going to be covered by more sediment and covered by more sediment and more, and that is going to harden, leaving this bird stuck right in the middle of that rock. And that will be in the form of a fossil. So that was the answer to yesterday's question. So give yourself some snaps, read what you wrote, make sure that it's clear, and add on to it if it's not. And then we're going to start with today's lesson. Okay? So yesterday at the beginning of the lesson, I took a big chunk of soil and threw it into this cup, and it was really muddy looking, and it was all mixed in there. So I just let the same cup sit on my counter all night. And now you can see that all of that sediment that I threw in there has settled down to the bottom. It is all in a layer right here at the bottom, and now the water is mostly clear. Okay, and all that sediment was heavy, so it fell. The water isn't moving like in a river, so all of this just settled down. Now, if I put more in today, that would settle down on top of this, and it would form another layer, right? And over thousands of years, that is going to harden because of the weight of the water and the weight of gravity pulling down on it. And it's going to harden into a sedimentary rock. And that's where sedimentary rocks are formed. Okay, that's how they are formed. So let's go to number 1 and just review. Sedimentary rock is formed when sediment settles to the bottom of a body of water and hardens over time in layers through cementation. And that's what this was modeling, how it's going to settle to the bottom and form a layer at the bottom. Okay? That would be a sedimentary rock, just like this one with the layers. You can tell that's how this rock was formed. Okay? Now, number 2, this is what we're learning about today, are igneous rocks. Igneous rock is formed from volcanoes when the lava cools and forms solid rock. The word igneous means from fire in Latin. So igneous means from fire. So igneous rocks are formed from volcanoes. Okay? So sedimentary rocks are formed through the settling of sediment, and it hardens, and over time forms a rock. This is the second type of rock called igneous rocks, and these are formed from volcanoes. Okay? So igneous, think ignite, fire, right? So they are formed from lava in the inside of a volcano. And I'll show you how that works in a minute. But there's one more vocabulary word that we need to talk about so that you can really understand what I mean when I explain that. So a mineral. A mineral is an inorganic earth material. It is inorganic matter. It was never alive. So minerals never, ever were alive. All right? They're just part of the earth. Minerals are the ingredients in rocks, meaning that rocks are made up of a combination of minerals. So when you look at a rock, this is a piece of granite rock. When you look at this rock, you can see all the different colors, right? There's white, there's black, there's some brown, there's all different colors mixed into it. Okay? So each of those different colors are different minerals. So the white is called quartz. That is the mineral of quartz that's inside of this granite rock. So granite rock is made up of mostly quartz and another mineral called feldspar. Okay? And then there's other ones in here. You can see how there's some spots that are really shiny. That's called mica. So there's mica in igneous rock. This is an igneous rock, but this is a piece of granite rock, which is igneous. Right? So this granite rock is made up of quartz minerals are in here, feldspar minerals are in here, and there are other ones that make this rock be granite. Okay, so the minerals are just the little ingredients that come together to form this type of rock, which is called a granite rock. All right, so here's a piece that I found. This is quartz. So this is just one mineral. This is quartz. Okay, so you can see that inside of this granite rock here, there is quartz in there. You can see the white spots. That is quartz. So this is the mineral because there's only quartz in this. There's no other ingredients. This is just a big piece of quartz. So this is a mineral, where this is a rock. Even though it has that quartz in it, it is made up. This rock is made up of different minerals. One of those minerals being this quartz. Okay? So minerals are the ingredients that combine together to make a certain type of rock, okay? And this granite is an igneous rock. It's made up of mostly quartz and feldspar. Those are the minerals that make up this rock, okay? This rock here. So now let's flip over to the back. But first, hold on, I wanted to show you something about the center of the earth here. We gotta talk about this. I think this will help make igneous rocks a little bit more clear to you. Okay, so here's a picture of the earth, a model of it. Okay, so the thin layer on the outside is called the crust. The crust is anywhere from 3 to 50 miles thick. So underneath the ocean, it's going to be more like 3 miles. It's going to be not quite as thick because there's so much water on top of it, right? But somewhere under like a mountain is going to be 50 miles thick. So there's kind of, from here to here, this crust could be anywhere between like 3 and 50 miles deep. So compared to the rest of the inside of the earth, it's pretty small. It's pretty thin, right? So this is the crust. Then below the crust is this section here, from here to here, is called the mantle. The mantle is solid rock. So if you were able to dig through the crust and get to the mantle, it is solid rock. Okay? Then you have the outer core. So there's the core, has an outer and an inner part. The outer core is actually liquid magma. So it is liquid. Okay? So this part here, from here to here, is liquid magma. So think about that. The mantle is sitting on a bunch of liquid magma. So this mantle is going to be moving around a little bit because it's sitting on a liquid, right? So as the liquid moves a little bit, that means the mantle is moving a little bit. And when that mantle is moving, what's going to happen to a giant piece of rock, because the mantle is solid rock, what's going to happen to this is that there are going to be little cracks that form in it from where it moves. So we'll have these cracks that form in the mantle because it's solid rock that's sitting on a liquid. So it's going to be moving a little bit, which is going to cause that rock to crack. So then what happens is the liquid magma from the outer core is going to make its way up through the cracks until it gets up so far into the Earth's crust. And if there's a mountain right here, we're not going to call that a mountain because that has now become a volcano. Okay, so the liquid magma has traveled all the way from the outer core through these cracks in the mantle that were caused by the moving of it on top of this liquid. It's going to move and cause cracks, and then through those cracks, we're going to have some of that liquid magma come up, and it will come out through a volcano as lava. Okay, so that's how we end up with volcanoes. That's just kind of a quick introduction to how a volcano is even formed, right? So now, igneous rocks were formed from volcanoes. So what happens is that magma, it's called magma when it's underground. And the same stuff, it's still magma, but once it comes out of the volcano, it is then, when it hits the Earth's surface, it is then called lava. So there's no difference between lava and magma, except that magma is underground and lava is when it comes out. And now it's above ground, right? It comes out and shows its face on our Earth. Okay, so the magma makes its way through that cracks in the mantle, makes its way up through the mountain here, and it is going to come out as lava. Now that lava is it is a liquid. It's liquid rock, and that's going to pour out, and then it's going to harden once it stops erupting. And that's going to harden into a giant piece of rock. Then it's going to happen again. Maybe a few years later, this volcano is going to erupt, and more lava is going to pour out on top of it. And then it's going to harden over time, and that's going to become a giant piece of rock. So now we're having kind of rock being layered on top of rock every time that lava comes out. And what it does over many, many, many years is it forms these giant rocks, which are going to form into mountains themselves if they pile up big enough, right? If we have enough lava coming out to pile up, we're going to end up with all of these hills or big mountains that are forming from the lava that came out and hardened, and then more came out and hardened, and it piles up and it piles up and it piles up in certain spots, and you end up with these giant mountains. Okay, so that's why when we looked in that video yesterday about that rock that I showed you, and I said this is an igneous rock, it was formed from a volcano millions of years ago. That is the process in which it happens. All right. Ooh, good stuff. So let's go to today's question. I want you to try to answer this. It says, granite is a type of igneous rock, which we talked about. New Hampshire, the state, is known as the Granite State. Explain how the mountains in New Hampshire were formed using your knowledge of igneous rock. So take what we just talked about. Watch the video from yesterday where I talk about igneous rocks. Think about how this piece of granite is made up of minerals, and it is an igneous rock. It was formed from volcanoes that erupted and cooled, and it turned into this rock. All right? So the question is, explain how the mountains in New Hampshire were formed using your knowledge of igneous rocks. And that's it. Okay, make sure I didn't forget anything. I think I'm good. Hope everybody has a great day. Enjoy this beautiful weather, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care.